All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our EPS Middle School Community Panel. We are excited to be with you on this Wednesday evening, and we do realize there are some other events happening in the world right now. So we thank you for joining us. Maybe you have two screens up right now, or maybe you're DVRing our vice presidential debates. Maybe you're watching this well after the 7th of October because you're watching a video format of it. And so however you are reaching us, we're glad that you're here. As you can read on the screen in front of you, we really want you to send through some questions that you might have to the chat. We have a variety of different members of our community who will be here to answer those questions. And the first thing that we're going to do before we get to your questions is begin with introducing everyone. So we are going to take a look at who is part of our panel this evening, and we're going to give you a chance to get to know them a little bit better. So admissions staff will introduce ourselves first so that you can get to know us, and then get to know the most important people that are on this call this evening, our students, as well as our faculty. So my name is Cheryl Miller. I'm the Director of Enrollment Management here at Eastside Prep, and I'm really delighted that you are joining us for our inaugural community panel of this admission season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you the person who has made this whole event happen this evening, put it all together, my colleague, Ms. Katie Nichol. Hi, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Like Cheryl said, my name is Katie Nichol, and I am the Admissions Experience Coordinator here at Eastside Prep, and this is year 5 for me. So feel free to put your questions in. I'll, popcorn them in with Cheryl to our students and our faculty, and I will go ahead and let Dia introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Dia. I am a 9th grader at Eastside Prep, and I've been here since 5th grade.
Adelaide, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Atalai. I am a 6th grader, and I've been here since 5th grade.
Hi, my name's Rajveer. I'm a 6th grader, and I started here last year in 5th grade.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and I'm a 5th grader, and I've been here since 5th grade.
I think that might throw it over to me. I am Karen Mills. I teach English. I'm in the English discipline in the middle school. Specifically, I teach 5th grade and 6th grade literary thinking classes. And this is my 18th school year at Eastside Prep.
Hi, my name is Katie Dodd. I'm the other Katie tonight. I teach science in our middle school, specifically to the 7th graders, as well as some upper school classes of ecology and marine biology. And this is my 12th year at EPS.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Uzwak. I'm the Associate Head of School for Middle School and Student Support. Katie and I started in the same year, so yes, I've also been here for, my goodness, for 12 years, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey folks, good evening. My name is Matt Delaney. I am the Director of Academic Design and Integration. My background tonight is our TMAC Amphitheater, where we do our presentations for independent studies for our 11th and 12th graders. So as you're imagining yourself as a middle schooler at EPS, this is where we want you to arrive. 14 years ago, when I was trying to figure out what EPS was all about, I would go to Karen Mills, who is one of our founding faculty members, to really understand what the place was about. So 14 years here for me. I've got a 6th grade son at EPS right now, and my daughter is a 3rd grader in Seattle Public Schools. So I'm definitely seeing the contrast between those two experiences right now. Right now, I'm also teaching a class called Undercover Economics and a seminar that's focused on a book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Harari. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Well, thanks, Mr. Delaney. And again, appreciate the questions that are coming in. I want to get started with a question that we're actually going to go down the line. We'll go in that same order that we introduced our panelists. So you'll get to hear from each of them. You did hear already from folks how long they've been part of the Eastside Prep community. I actually think I neglected that question myself. This is my 3rd year at Eastside Prep, my 15th year overall in admissions, both school and college and university. And I am going to kick us off with a question because I think that even in this virtual space, when we were gathering here together this evening before you all joined this event, you can get a feeling for the organic connections that happen between people. So even while we're doing school online, we have a lot of opportunities to really be in community with one another. So what I'd love for everyone to get us started with is just a favorite moment or experience at Eastside Prep. So when you think back to your first day, your first week, you know, Zoe, for you, it's you're just finishing up really your first month. I actually think today is probably exactly a month that you've been in school at Eastside Prep. But an experience that you've had, something memorable, something that you feel like I will probably remember this for the rest of my life. And it can be anything. It can be something from a class. It can be something from an experience you've had on or off campus, but also part of the EPS community. And just something to help us get a flavor for maybe some of the things that you've done during your time at EPS. So, so Dia, if you would get us started with just an EPS memory, something that you're fond of, and hopefully this question will just get a little bit more of the flavor of the place for you all, so that will stimulate some more questions, and then we'll start going through the questions that you have in the chat.
Something that I really enjoyed, especially last year, was advisory. The first picture, that was my advisory. And I just really liked it because my advisor, Ms. Freistack, was really nice and funny. And my advisory, they were like all of my friends. So it was lots of fun.
Ms. Nichol, do you mind popping back to that advisory photo so we can, just for those who might have been late popping in, that they can see Dia and her advisory? Very high jumpers in that advisory, I would say. It's a good amount of, I think probably Carlos is the one who has the highest jump in the group, or maybe it's just because his legs are tucked, but. So advisory, a highlight for Dia. Dia, whose advisory are you in this year?
Mr. Wasink.
Mr. Wasink. Is it as fun as Ms. Freistack?
Yeah, I think I liked, I said specifically last year because it was in person, and this year it's not in person, so that's a little bit different, but I still get the sense of community.
Awesome. Great to hear. And we can pop back to our slide so you can see everyone's names. Thanks for that, Ms. Nichol. And we will kick it over to Atalay.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, sorry, I'm pretty laggy right now. I feel like one of my fondest memories would be the overnight last year. We can't exactly do the overnight online, but if it were to be in person, the overnight would be, it's pretty fun. You make a lot of friendships during the overnight. There are a bunch of activities. Yeah, you basically spend like a day at school, and I feel like it's a really important piece of like EPS and like, you know, like being like, if it make every the classes after overnight feel, overnight sort of makes it feel a bit more in the school. Like you get out of summer break and you realize like, yeah, this is school.
Yeah, kind of refocuses you back. And actually our 5th graders traditionally for that fall overnight have stayed on the campus. So they actually take over the campus for an evening and stay there. So it's a pretty cool experience. It's always fun to see them piling into the LPC or commons in the morning, ready for their What did you have for breakfast last year, Atalay?
Oh, everyone else was having like very high calorie stuff, but I didn't want to do that, so instead I had oatmeal, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice high fiber choice. Very responsible. Act responsibly is part of our mission. It feels like you took that on for that first breakfast at EPS. I'm glad. We'll move over to Rajveer. Rajveer, what memory do you want to share with folks?
So I have a lot of memories here over the past year, but one memory that shows our community together is one time we were at an away game for soccer, and I rolled my ankle while running, and not everyone on the whole soccer team just ran to me to help me, and everybody felt bad for me, and they made sure I was okay and took me off the field, and I really thought that showed how it is at EPS.
How's your ankle doing these days?
It's been like a year, so it's pretty good.
It's good now? Okay, good. I'm glad. And I'm glad to hear that everyone was supportive of you then. Thanks for sharing that. Zoe, do you want to share you've had a month of experience at EPS, something that comes to mind as an EPS memory for you?
Well, during like the second week of school, a science teacher, Miss Kuffner, actually, I'm in the 5th grade science lab right now.
I can
Our
see
science
that.
teacher, Miss Kuffner, brought in a bryozoan from Lake Sammamish, which is like this big blob of microscopic creatures, but they weren't microscopic to us because she also somehow got this microscope camera, and we could see all the individual bryozoa. It was really cool.
That's really cool. So she got that from Lake Sammamish?
They're like big blobs of bryozoa under, she said, the pilings and the swim ladders and stuff, but I've never actually been swimming in there, so I don't know.
Has anybody been in Lake Sammamish swimming and has encountered some bryozoa during their time there?
Yes, it was actually last year after she showed it to us that I went there and saw them.
You went there and saw it? Was it cool?
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see them.
Nice. That's awesome. All right, Ms. Mills, you know, as we've heard, you have the most years of experience at EPS, so I'm curious what your EPS memory is going to be.
Oh my goodness, I can't even tell you. I mean, 18 years is a long time to do anything, and there's so many memories. And as I'm listening to the students talk about their own memories, I've got a list going right here, like, oh yeah, that, oh yeah, that, oh, that was a great memory too. All of the memories that I'm having kind of all circle around the community, and not necessarily in a classroom, but outside a classroom. Our talent shows that we haven't had in a while, but they would always bring out just wonderful acts and attempts at, you know, great humor or singing or plays or whatever. And they were just so much fun to watch the personalities come out. And I especially loved how supportive everybody in the audience was. You know, it's really hard to put yourself out there. And that was one of my favorite memories. But then the students were talking about overnights. Atalay was talking about his overnight. And I started thinking about some of our service days. I was thinking about a service day that I went on a few years ago with the 6th graders. And it was a particularly difficult day. Just for the whole community because of some things that had happened. And the act of going out and planting trees and being in the open and being with each other and seeing that there's you know, good happening in the world was really impactful for me. And that is something that I'm always going to remember. And just super lucky that I get to have so many of these memories. I could go on and on, but we have more people on the list and everybody else has questions. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop.
Thanks for that, Ms. Mills.
I want to talk about
somebody's going to have to shut this down because I'm just going to keep memories going.
Okay. I have one more.
Oh,
Can I say one more? Okay. Well, Roger made me think of Roger and I are in our fantasy football club together, which I've been in for about 5 or 6 years now, and Roger joined last year, and it's something that hopefully will continue forever. It's just a really fun time in the middle of the day where we get together and I don't know, do we place bets? Can we say that? No, we don't place bets. We make picks and we have our teams and we've all got our fantasy players and we give each other a hard time. No, we don't place bets. It's not true at all. But we do have a really fun time, and that's another favorite memory. Okay, I'm stopping now.
I so appreciate all those memories. I think probably even those who haven't been at part of the EPS community yet can identify with that power of during challenging times, having some time in nature and having some time in community with one another. I know we actually just this past weekend had some of our students gathering for some hikes and off-campus experiences, as well as on-campus socially distanced gatherings with masks on. And I think just that power of being together and doing things in nature, especially for the benefit of the community, like planting trees, is just a really great thing. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and I hope that's a connection point for pretty much everyone out there. Ms. Dodd, what would you like to share with us in terms of this memory?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking kind of along the same lines as Ms. Mills, that it's really so hard to just pick like the, favorite memory, because for me, honestly, it's the little things that really add up for me. And so it's all of the interactions, sitting at lunch with my coworkers who were my friends, right? And how much I look forward to that, and just, the joking and the affection and the support that we can get from each other, right? That knowing that if I have a question, someone wants to help me with it, and just all those little ways that really add up to just this collective sense of community with between the adults, as well as between the adults and the kids, as well as within the kids, right? It's like this sense of we're all in this together, which was not my experience back in the day in middle school. It did not feel like we were all kind of on the same team in the same way. So that's something I really value about being here. And I think one other piece for me is just the experiences I've been able to have with students outside of the classroom, like on our EBC week trips, where I've been, with students to Santa Fe or to Washington, D.C., or New Orleans, and just the conversations that you can have in these other settings, when you're riding a horse, next to a kid in New Mexico, and just, it just opens up all these different avenues of connection that you didn't even know you had. And it's just such a great time, such a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. All great things to hear as well. And yeah, I mean, when you have those visceral experiences of just doing something alongside another person, the novelty of that, just the power of that is really great. So we're very hopeful to get back to our Education Beyond the Classroom experiences soon. And actually just today in our senior leadership team meeting, we were talking about what is that going to look like for the upcoming year, and getting our initial ideas together so that we can start to unveil those to the community soon. So Mr. Yu, what would you like to share in terms of an EPS?
It's such an unfair question, but I'll do a couple if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because there are the couple things that just sort of sprung to mind. A few years back, I was with the 6th graders at Nature Bridge, which is a place we go to on the Olympic Peninsula. I know Karen's been there, and a bunch of folks, and we had this particular evening where, you have 54 kids who've had a real long day, and we're asking them to be, introspective and reflective, and they're hanging out with their buddies. And we were on this sort of little spit of land on Lake Crescent, and sun's going down behind the mountains. One of our colleagues, Ryan Winkleman, whom we call Wink, led the kids through this, it's kind of a gratitude moment, like let's just pause, let's slow down, let's look around and see who we are with. And it was just kind of magical. I got to be a participant and see it all go down. And it really spoke to, the character of our kids and the values of our community. Which brings me to the second one I was going to mention, which is far more recent and a little more, a little more challenging to remember. But, when we all, on March 2nd, when Eastside Prep left our home because of this pandemic, we entered a real chapter of uncertainty. The weeks went on, and we figured it out, and everyone brought their best selves to the challenge. And one of our teachers forwarded me this really, a really cool series of flip grids or little videos, little snapshots of students, and it was basically sort of like, it was a warm-up activity. Not a big deal, just kind of a quick thing to start class. except that it kind of revealed everything you needed to know about the people you were with. You know, the question was like, you know, what if you had 3 wishes, what they would be, which is such a fun prompt. And to a kid, the first one was everyone would be safe and healthy, and the second one was I would love to see my friends again. And I think the reason that one popped in my head is because, you know, we're still working hard, we're still moving through the uncertain times. But we're doing it together, and I think it's this group of people in this place called Eastside Prep that is making that not only doable, but we're still able to thrive. And so anyway, like I said, Cheryl, this is a tough question.
I know. I need, you know, what I wanted folks to know is we don't start with softball questions at EPS.
No, you sure didn't.
We get right into it. And I think also, you know, there's part of I think there's the connection of going to memory and fond memory that hopefully helps you to connect with us as people rather than as a formal panel of folks somewhere off in the distance, but we're real life humans here who have tender hearts and, you know, and fond memories of EPS. So Matt Delaney, will you round this EPS Memory Fest out for us, please?
I certainly will. And I think I'm in the process of attempting to mine something from thousands of incredibly positive memories over the time I've been at EPS. But I think I'm gonna choose to be fairly current. As I mentioned in the introduction, I teach a course right now called Undercover Economics. And I so love seeing the faces of all 18 of my students on screen every morning that we're together, and the kind of conversations that we can have. And I think that what transcends the remote space is that just last week I was having an interaction with a student whose name is Abby in my class. And she was asking me a question, and I was really trying to get what she was asking so I could give her a response that was going to help her to understand the concept that we were working on. And as we worked through it in front of the other 17 in class, I was like, you know what, Abby, let's hold on. Would you stick around after class for a second when everybody signs off? Let's talk for a second. I want to understand exactly where you're coming from so I can make sure I answer your question well. And so we did that. Class ended. Abby stayed on, and we had a little bit more space for her to articulate what she was trying to understand. And it's interesting, as a teacher, you have to listen really well to your students, because the way they ask questions lets you know what you can do better, right? And so I was able to answer Abby's question, but she answered one for me. The way I had to articulate the answer based on her questions, it meant that the next time that I walked into the economics class, that I was going to be able to present that information in a way that was going to be better understood by every student in the class. So the thing I think I want to express, if I haven't already, is that I think Ms. Dodd talked to this a little bit earlier, is that there's a certain kind of emergent property at EPS that everybody's contributing to, right? And in this case, it was one of my students making the class experience better for every one of her peers. And I'd say that's a fairly common experience at EPS, and it I think highlights the partnership between everyone in the community.
Well, that is the segue that you could have never known was so perfect to the first question that I want to ask you all, because we have a question about collaboration, wanting to know how we're able to nurture students in a more personalized manner, given your students, you all have different levels of strength and improvement in particular areas, and you have different levels of capability. So I think this person wants to know if we can share some experiences on maybe some larger projects that middle schoolers typically do in collaboration. They could be small projects or large projects that evidence that collaboration, but students, I'm wondering if you can share with us just an example, maybe two, of something that you've done in collaboration with other colleagues, and that's something that certainly is happening quite a bit in the remote space, even though we are not able to gather in tight-knit physical groups with one another. There's certainly through Teams Live is not where you can see this take place, but through Teams meetings and breakout channels, we have a lot of ability to do small group work as well. So students, what ideas come to mind in terms of some of those collaborative projects?
Um,
Go ahead.
in math class, every class we have classwork assigned to us, and we go into our table groups. So it's a channel in Teams. So we go to the separate channel, and then one of us will screen share. There's three of us. So one of us will screen share and work through the problems. And if any one of us has a question, then we ask our group members. And I really like it that way, because then it's like a nice size, 3 people, and then the teacher will pop in into each channel. So if we have any questions that we're not able to answer ourselves, then we can ask him. And I really like that way of learning math.
Nice. Very collaborative.
Wait, should I speak?
Yes, you should speak. That is a great idea, Atalay. Go ahead.
So, this is pretty recent. In Spanish class, we've been watching this sort of like series on YouTube. And for one of the major assignments, a group, you would get into like a group of 3, and then you would recreate one of the episodes from the series. And I feel like it's pretty good because like you get to work together on it, and you know, you really get to depend on like your friends and your colleagues. Yeah.
And it also sounds like fun to recreate those episodes. Cool. Thanks, Atalay. Rajveer, do you want to share one?
I actually had one in science this year, and we were doing a scientific lab experiment, but at home. And nobody in the group was afraid to answer questions or ask questions or ask for help or ask how to do the experiment, and everyone it just felt like a community. And I might say this a lot, but EPS has a really strong community, and almost everything is built around it.
That's great to hear, and it sounds like it was fun. What was the nature of the science experiment that you were doing at home?
So we were basically answering questions about, like, you have to measure how many how long is 10 pennies stacked on each other. So like it might be like a meter, half a meter, 2 meters, 0.11 meters. I don't know the answer right now, but we were doing those, and then like we kept answering questions, and if someone had a question, we'd just throw it out there without being shy or wondering if they'll answer it or not.
That's great. It's great to hear that folks were unafraid to participate. Zoe, what would you share?
Well, I think it's not an academic class, but I think a example of a really big group collaborating is the Eastside Prep cast for the middle school play The Hobbit. And I think everyone just works together so well, and also everyone's really good actors.
Mm-hmm.
And this prize stack is extremely encouraging, as is everyone else.
So it sounds like The Hobbit's going really well. Do we have anyone else that's on the call that's part of The Hobbit right now?
I think Atalay is.
Atalay is.
I'm also I'm in choir, and I think we're recording a song that's going to be in The Hobbit. So each of us are recording ourselves singing the song, and then Miss Ellingson, who is our choir teacher, is going to compile all the tracks and put it against music so that it can be there for The Hobbit.
Yeah.
That sounds super cool.
Oh, I'm also in choir and the play, and yeah.
That's great, Atalay. Zoe, can you tell us the format of The Hobbit? Like how are we doing this play, especially while we're remote?
Oh, we're doing a Miss Freistack, I think it was Miss Freistack, had this great idea, and we're doing a radio play. So that's like a podcast, I guess. But he says that they used to be called radio plays or something.
Faculty, any collaborative projects that you want to share from your perspective? Maybe some things that you've done multiple times or kind of larger projects that you've been part of?
Well, I could speak to one or two. Before I do that, though, I am just like sitting here with this like silly grin on my face because I love listening to all of you students talking about the things that you're doing. I miss you so much, and I wish I know I get to see some of you in class every other day, but man, I miss being on campus with you. Okay, that aside.
Mm-hmm.
I've done all kinds of collaborative pieces with my colleagues over the years. I was going to say that one way that we've been collaborative since we've been remote is I teach English, Literary Thinking 1 with another teacher. So she and I share the classes. So something that we've done, of course, we share screens and slides and all kinds of things between our classes. But one piece of technology that we've been able to use is screencasting some really short lessons so that the kids can see them sort of asynchronously, or if they can go back to them if they need to. So just short lessons about how to get to different places. And we've done some like back and forth kind of things, you know, like she'll introduce her story to me and then I'll record a video critiquing it or giving her feedback, you know, and showing students how to use the slides. So we've done some fun things remotely. I work really closely with the 5th grade historical thinking teacher, and we do a ton of different projects together over the year where maybe it's a research project where he spends some time working through resources with the students and pulling out good data and pulling out good information. And then I work with them to compile that data and tell the story, report it back, or create something new with that information. So we tag team a lot that way. He and I also have a very important collaboration, which the 5th graders, Zoe, you're just about to learn about. The Classcots, we have these little characters who appear every month and they have little conversations between each other. So we have fun collaborations, like kind of silly, non-academic ones as well across the year.
So am I understanding that term correct? Is a Classcot a class mascot? Is that
class
correct?
Mascot. Yeah, that's right. It's just shrunk together.
It's a portmanteau word. I love it.
Right. That's portmanteau. Exactly. Very good. Yeah, Classcot.
All right, well, before we move on from this question, does anyone else want to share a collaboration, a big project?
I guess I could say something. So last year, it was the fall trimester, and all of the people from Miss Balcom's art class and everyone that had some art to show, we went into the tally and we posted all of it. Some of the teachers might have seen it, but it was next to the theater and there was a bunch of art placed there. And I remember how everybody was helping each other put like pictures on the wall. They were like throwing tape at each other so that like it was all working in like one motion, and it was like so, and it's not like anybody was directing someone to do something. It just happened. It's like we were connected and it was one person doing everything and they knew what was going to happen next.
That's so great to hear about. And I loved seeing all of your artwork in the tally space where you displayed it. It's so much fun, especially for the teachers. I know for the parents and guardians to see your work, whether it's performed or whether it's, you know, visual art that you're displaying in the gallery space. It's really, really nice. So one thing that's come up in a couple of the questions that I want to highlight is around student support. And, you know, Mr. Delaney, this in some ways echoes the memory that you were sharing earlier. about how, the question is, how do teachers connect with their students in a way that each student can get the help they need? From a student's perspective, how good are teachers at answering questions in class? Like, so students, if you can share on your end, kind of, you know, when you feel like you've had an experience of a teacher really giving you the response that you need in order to have further understanding. Oh, we've got crashes and booms in the background. Sorry, everyone. But I'm hoping that you can talk a little bit about that. And then another question that we received is about learning and social support at EPS for kids with learning or behavioral differences. So, so I'm hoping that Mr. Uzwak can tackle that. But students first, I'm hoping that you can share a little bit about sort of like how your teachers have helped you with questions that you've had. And then faculty, if you would be able to share from your perspective, you know, some of the ways that you're able to meet each student where they are. And maybe we'll start with faculty on this one.
Ooh, okay, I'll jump in here because I didn't share an answer last time. So I think, you know, the big thing is in terms of individual levels, we're always working hard to encourage the students to reach out to us and to communicate with us, which can be a little intimidating at first, right? And so we also know that. And so it's about helping them with that self-advocacy piece, right? And sort of ramping up those expectations. It's like there's scaffolding for self-advocacy in some ways, right? And really just making that a positive experience for them so that they're encouraged to continue to reach out with questions about anything, right? Whether that's a question about a grade, whether that's a clarifying question, any of those things. Because that, again, I think Mr. Delaney got it, that helps me figure out where I haven't been clear, right? And another resource that I really value having here is we have our learning support group, and they're so great because I can just go to them and I say, hey, I've got this new project, or I'm redeveloping something. Can you help me take a look at this, right? Can you help me take a look at these instructions and help give me, a perspective that maybe I don't have? And they've just, so helpful, so many great ideas that then, those help all the students, right? Not just students with learning differences or students with accommodations, although of course, that's a part of it, but anything that makes an assignment clearer and more effective is beneficial to everyone in the community. So I'm so grateful for all the time that they dedicate to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm gonna tag team on that too, because Katie, I in fact yesterday worked with somebody from our learning support team. I had a revised assignment, going from in-person to remote. So I had her take a look at it just to kind of temper it out and see, like, are kids getting this? Like, what are you seeing in your classes, and what are you, just thinking through like the process of helping a student really understand the material, especially when they're not with us in person. It's hard to gather that over a screen. So it's always nice to get a second opinion. I would also say, as far as student support and kind of individualization of their work, we've made over the last couple of years on the English side, we have made a pretty big effort to work one-on-one with students as they're turning in work, or as they're working on their work, meeting with them kind of one-on-one, pointing out differences. Today, in fact, in class, I was helping 6th graders set some writing goals for themselves. For they turned in one assignment, we're looking at that. Okay, now what's next for you? And that's a really, it's really specific to each student, right? So some students are working on how to organize an argument. Some students are working on word choice because they've got the organization down and they just need to like fine tune a few pieces, right? So, giving assignments that are kind of a little bit more open-ended, a little bit more choice, and a little bit more differentiated just for those specific students, and then helping them kind of work where they need to be working is something we've really been focusing on too.
That's great to hear. And students, can you talk about what this is like on the receiving end of this intentional support? What does that look like for you in terms of the questions that you have, how those are received, how those are answered, ways that you're uniquely supported as the learners that you are?
I can tackle the social emotional learning
Go for it.
question. So last year I did have some fights and some problems with other people, but One of the counselors, Miss Sanchez, she really helped me tackle through it, and she helped me get on good terms with who I was dealing with, and I think she was really helpful, and she never got mad at anything. She was really open-minded, and she tolerated what was going on.
That's awesome to hear. And so Miss Sanchez is one of our 3 school counselors that we have at EPS, Ms. Sanchez, Ms. Boismanu, and Ms. Lorne. And they're available right now. They're meeting with students over a bookings process. So any student can book in time with one of the counselors. And it's great to hear when they're able to give that social emotional support. And I think that can also happen with advisors too. Sometimes advisors are that trusted adult that a student might go to and say, hey, you know what? I'm having a tough time with some of these relationships that I have here at school. How can I find a different path, a different strategy for navigating some of these friendships that I have? What should I do? And advisories are on a grade level basis. I know one other question that we got, I'll just interject that really quickly because that one came in on the chat. Advisories are on a grade level basis because we realize that many students are going to need, specific things. A 7th grader's needs and an 8th grader's needs are different than a 5th grader's needs and a 6th grader's needs. So, having those advisories be grade level is something that's intentional on our part to really make sure that we can target some of those supports, especially on that social emotional front. So, Rajveer, I really appreciate you sharing that one. Any other students want to share some ways that they've been supported with questions that they've had and just in general?
Well, every time I have a question, I always feel comfortable asking my teachers. So I ask in class, both remote and in person. I've asked them in class and they'll answer. And they always stay behind for like how much ever time, like in the passing period. If any students have questions then that they want to ask one-on-one, then they do that. And I also, if I want to meet with my teachers, then they're always there. It got really easy online because all I had to do was like sit on my computer and schedule a meeting. So that was really helpful for me.
So I remember once last year, I was in math. I was having trouble with integers and negative numbers. I remember getting like a 20% on a test, and then I had a private meeting with my teacher, and it sort of clicked. Yeah.
That's great. All of a sudden, integers were not a mystery anymore. They were something you could work with. That's awesome. Well, it's a great specific example of a question that we just recently got in the chat, which is how students get feedback from peers and teachers, and how teachers know how well students understand the materials they're studying. I think a lot of times that happens as a result of those one-on-one meetings. And I know I've heard about with math in particular this year with math foundations courses, how that's something that teachers have had a lot of time in just that one-on-one exchange to be able to understand, hey, what do you really need? So I think one-on-one is a lot of times where that happens. But if anyone else has examples of where that happens peer-to-peer, like how do you get feedback from your classmates? How do people share, maybe if they have challenging feedback for you and maybe they feel like you could improve something that you're doing? I'm curious how that feedback comes across too.
Can I jump in?
Go for it, Zoe.
Well, in Introduction to Literary Thinking or just like language arts class, Miss Mills has us break out into groups, and well, I don't know if I have to share this, but we chose our own names, and we ended up with the 3 cheesy name givers, the awesome breakdancing bookworms, and the gaming sushi eaters. Anyway, those groups, we haven't really used them that much, but then again, there's only been 1 month of school. But we each wrote stories about a moment in our summer, and we did peer editing in those groups. And I think that my peers were very supportive about my story, but also had some good feedback, which wasn't just good job, great, yay. So yeah.
That's a great example, Zoe. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, and since I'm here, can I just jump in too? Being the Miss Mills who let them name themselves the awesome dancing bookrooms or what? Breakdancing bookrooms, that's what they are. A lot of the way that I try to guide students with giving feedback to each other is, first of all, acknowledging that it's really hard to share work with other people, and it's also really hard to give feedback to peers. But I usually provide them with a set of questions or like a checklist of these are the things that I would be giving feedback on and the way that I would be talking about it. And so we try to give them the language to work with each other. So what Zoe was talking about is, I'd given them a few different questions, right? What did you like? What did you want to know more about? And setting it up in kind of positive terms of like, okay, it's okay to give feedback. It's okay to try to improve your writing.
I appreciate you sharing that, kind of from the other side in terms of what that looks like from the teacher perspective, Ms. Mills. I want to move on to a question. I want to actually take it to like a 30,000 foot. If we have any education geeks out there, folks that like to know about kind of how do things work in schools? What is this all about? We received a question to ask us to describe what progressive pedagogy and experiential learning looks like at EPS. So I want to throw that over to Matt Delaney, our Director of Academic Design and Integration, because I think that that's something we can talk in like a big picture way about some of the things that we've gotten some very specific examples of here.
So let's, I won't go all the way to 30,000 feet, but I'll try to give some more concrete examples. So much of good teaching and learning is about meeting students where they are. I would say that this fall, if we think about our upcoming election, or we think about the conditions in the United States connected to COVID, we've got a lot to talk about, and we have a lot to process. So as we're remote, I think more of that is dialoguing online, and thinking about students, where they are with their families and how that may be relevant, their situation may be relevant to our particular classes. And then I think maybe if I could take that on as well in a like when we're in a face-to-face setting, when we're on campus together. So the first project that comes to mind, and actually, Mr. Uzwak, this is a little bit of looking at our future this spring as we teach urban planning together for the first time. It is not only understanding the core concepts connected to a particular subject matter, but it is being able to apply them. And I think even beyond that at Eastside Prep, it's not just applying them, it's actually seeing how we might make the world better, right? So in our urban planning class, students are asked to first understand core concepts of urban planning by identifying them in different communities around them. They actually go out and they walk for homework, and they go identify things. The final project for the course is taking an urban segment in the Seattle area and redesigning it with their group, and they're usually in groups of 2 to 3 students. So it's not just about, okay, what are the current conditions in Seattle? It's like, if you could make Seattle better based on what you know now, in an urban planning sense, how would you redesign the world to make it better, to make the lived human experience better? And so I'd say, like, if we're gonna go to 30,000 feet, Cheryl, it's being able to abstract enough. It's being able to look down at the world around you and recognize that as a student, you have some agency. You're going to have more and more agency. The older you grow, the more you know, and you are going to be able to have a positive impact on the world. I feel like, I'm not sure who, I think it was Ms. Dodd again who said her middle school experience did not include any of that, like that kind of agency. But that's what we're trying to build for students. If I feel personally invested in a problem that I might be able to solve, I think I'm a better learner. So I think I would term that progressive. And then in terms of experience, whether it's bringing in 6 or 7 different speakers to talk about different things in a class over the course of a term, or getting everybody on a bus and getting them outside to go see the things we're talking about. We're constantly pursuing experience like that.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, for addressing progressive pedagogy and experiential learning by grounding it in some lived examples from the EPS experience. And one thing that I'd like to talk about from the EPS experience outside of academics is what clubs look like. So we have someone who wants to learn more about middle school after school clubs. Are these students driven? We did talk a little bit about the play already, and that is an after school activity, but wondering about examples of experiences, especially around technology, science, art, and maker related. And we also received a question about the Makerspace, and I feel bad asking it in front of Zoe because she hasn't had a chance to get in there yet, but students that have had a chance to utilize the different maker spaces that we have on campus that might want to talk about those. And then, certainly the question came through of, does school have any particular tradition of participating in state or national events, either community service or academic related. So just trying to get some layers in terms of student experience outside of academic experience, and some of the different things that you collaborate on in clubs, and maybe even with things that might be competitive. And technology, science, art, and maker related was the specific ask there. So feel free, anybody who wants to jump in.
There's a middle school makerspace and an upper school makerspace. I've been in both. So the middle school makerspace, I think it has a laser cutter, a few 3D printers, and it's like my favorite wall in the whole school. There's a wall, and there's a shelf against the wall, and it's got baskets in it full of just like art supplies. There's so many art supplies, and there's also a vinyl cutter, and I think a t-shirt press, like you can design something and put it on a shirt. Mm-hmm. And then the upper school makerspace has 3D printers, laser cutters. I don't know how many laser cutters, but and there's also a CNC machine. And that's also like where the Fuser Club meets. And the robotics club, like when we're on campus. So if you go there, like after school, there's probably going to be some robots and like people working on projects, and it's really cool.
It's great.
So you might not know, but in early 5th grade, I was really addicted to the Makerspace. Like I couldn't get out of there. Okay. So, within the first 3 months, I wouldn't stop begging Miss Hollingshead to let me go to the US Makerspace, upper school Makerspace. So the first few months I was in the middle school Makerspace, and I'd be making I'd make like 5 3D prints a day, maybe like 2 laser cuts, and it'd be really fun and everything to see the outcome. And then there was a bunch of there were a bunch of designs I had before we went online, and I really wanted to do them before the year ended, but I have to hold on to them and wait, and it's really annoying because I have a class with Miss Hollingshead, and she has a 3D printer in her behind her, and it's really annoying to see that she has one but I don't. So
well, thanks for coming clean on that addiction with us, Rajbir. That's big, and we know that the gravitational force of the Makerspace and the 3D printers in particular is real. So thank you for sharing that. That was great.
Can I talk about clubs?
Go for it, Adelaide.
So mostly clubs are teacher-led. However, you can make a club about basically anything, but you need a teacher to help you with that. So, for example, I have a sister in 11th grade, and she has an after-school club, and it's called Business Club. And she basically sort of made it, but had a teacher with her. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a faculty sponsor for a club that a student might come up with or some students might come up with. And that's really how clubs start most of the time. There's an idea that students have, something that they love, something that they enjoy, and they find that faculty member who is as excited, if not sometimes more excited about that idea than they are, and then just bring it to life, make it happen, find some other students who want to get involved. So what other clubs experiences do folks want to share?
I have a thing, but it's not really about clubs. Although I do have a question about clubs, but I'll ask you later. So I have, like you said, parents also want to know about outside school experiences. And although technically it's a class, I think the soccer team should count. And I just want to talk about our soccer coach because A, she's also our science teacher, and B, you know, I think she's doing a really good job coaching online. I have a question about clubs. Which teacher sponsored the bread club?
The bread club in upper school. Do we know who is our club sponsor for the bread club?
Mr. Sternitsky is the sponsor for the bread club.
Okay, so Mr. Sternitsky, our campus ambassador, if you've been to the Eastside Prep campus in person, you probably have met Mr. Sternitsky. The bread club, the first meeting of the bread club that I remember is when students actually put up a tent. It was a rather large tent, maybe like an 8-person tent inside the Tally. That's our main building, inside the Tally lobby. And they had a toaster oven plugged in, and they were toasting bread and sitting in the tent and chatting and eating the toast. Does anyone else remember that day? I found it particularly memorable.
Yeah, at Dr. Macaluso's desk.
At Dr. Macaluso's desk, yes.
I was there. We were, it's the Tally, like you can look down at the lobby from the other levels. So we were, I think, on the 2nd floor, and we just saw a bunch of upper schoolers. We were in middle school then. We just saw a bunch of upper schoolers eating bread, and it was pretty funny, and you could smell the bread everywhere.
Yeah, I was kind of mad at them because once you smell that toasty bread smell, it's hard to think about anything else and focus on anything else.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Miller, can I jump in really quickly on the competing question?
Please, go right ahead.
So part of that club's question was asking about if we compete at a state or a national level on anything. This is my 2nd year being kind of a co-coach or an assistant coach for robotics. While it looks different this year than it did last year for middle school, we do compete in the first LEGO League in the middle school. So we will do the challenges that happen in that, and then compete against other schools or other teams. They're not all attached to a school, but other teams in the state. And last year we had one of our 4 middle school teams make it to state, which was really exciting. This year, while we're not competing with the first LEGO League due to COVID and distancing, we are still participating in Minecraft EDU, which Atlai was actually in with me this afternoon.
Atlai, how's Minecraft going?
It's really good. It can get laggy at sometimes, but it's pretty fun. And it sort of like combines like Minecraft. It's sort of basically like coding with like block coding, but it's also in like Minecraft. So yeah, it's really fun, honestly.
Great.
Yeah.
I have something about competing as well. So I was in math team last year, and we went to a bunch of competitions. There was also an online competition, and we're also going to have some online competitions this year. So it was really fun, and we also sometimes, if we qualified, we could go to state level. So we were in a math is cool competition, I think, and Reiko was this close to going to state level, so it was really fun, and I also remember winning a prize in some of those state level competitions, so it was really fun.
That's great. So math, another area where we do some competition as well.
In our environmental practices class in 8th grade, we for our final, we had to submit a video, 1 minute long exactly, to this, I don't remember the name, but it was a website, and it was, you got 3 topics, you could choose from 3 topics, something to do with water and the population, I think, and we were paired up and we made videos and we submitted it, and I think people from all over the country submitted it. There was a middle school section and a high school section, and 2 people from our class won, so that was nice.
That's awesome. All right, anything else on clubs that folks want to share or competitions that you've been part of? I want to sneak in a quick question here about middle school math, and actually, Mr. Uzwak, if you would frame for us how we get started with middle school math for 5th and 6th graders who are newly joining the community, and then kind of where they go from there, because this question is really about how students are, you know, especially those that are academically advanced are challenged, and you know what it might look like to be part of high school math classes at Eastside Prep, because certainly there's a lot of things where we can cross divisions between middle school and upper school coursework wise, but math is really or activities wise, but math is really the one where that would happen coursework wise. So, Mr. Yu.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a really important question. A lot of schools handle math in a whole bunch of different ways. We've learned over the years that it's really important to have an absolutely solid foundation of computational skills. And not only do we focus on the algorithms and the math itself, but the habits of mind that make for successful mathematicians. Those are things like wrestling with ambiguity. Those are things like knowing why the math works. When I was a kid, I was a pretty good math student, but I could plug in the formula, I could get the right answer, but I didn't necessarily know what that formula was representing, the beauty of math that was in front of me. I just knew how to do it. It's really important to know how to do things. It's really important to have those solid computational skills. It's equally important to understand why the math works. So how do we do that? Well, for 5th and 6th grade, we have a class called Mathematical Foundations. The majority of students will start their math journey with us there. And it's lovely because it's a differentiated class. What I mean by that is we have students who come from all over the place with all kinds of math backgrounds. And maybe they focused, maybe they didn't do one particular math skill in another school. They didn't do a particular math skill. We make sure everyone is all set. If you're really good at something, if you know it cold, we ask you to apply it. If you haven't learned something yet, we teach it to you. Moving on beyond the foundations classes, that allows us to have students start pre-algebra, typically in 6th grade, moving on to algebra and geometry by the time they're done with middle school, which allows the majority of our students to reach advanced calc by the time they're seniors. That is about a couple years ahead of the typical public school progression. It's about as much as colleges want us to do in terms of that high level math. Along the way though, you know, if we have so many students who just, this is their passion, this is what they love to do. And so there are opportunities to accelerate their progression. We do that in a number of ways. There's also opportunities that if you've gotten out over your skis a little bit, and maybe you're in a math class that is a little bit too much of a strain and not a stretch, we can decelerate the process as well. Math is the discipline, to be frank, that is the most recognizable in terms of progression. And so people can point to that very sort of traditional sequence of classes. And that's what we have. But what we want to absolutely make sure is that students are served by our program and that they're able to progress through it confidently and competently.
Really appreciate that, Mr. Uzwak. Great framing of how things work math-wise, and it's all about that right level of challenge, whether you're talking about you know, a problem or a unit of learning or a whole course's worth of information. You know, having that right level of challenges is just super critical for us. And There's also different levels of challenge that are offered within our music programs, and we actually just got a question if we can ask or if we can share some more about the music program. So students that are in the middle school, of course, are taking different fine and performing arts electives each trimester, and we really encourage them, as well as the upper schoolers, to take, to really tackle a breadth of the curriculum, not just kind of pigeonhole in one area. So students, will you share maybe what you're in right now for your music class or a fine arts class, and what you have taken in the past if you've already taken classes at Eastside Prep?
As I mentioned earlier, I am currently in choir, and we are working on some audio for the middle school play. Last year I had done theater, improv, and art meets tech, which is basically, sort of what it sounds like. It's basically you sometimes do drawing like physically, but most of the time you're doing stuff digitally, like photoshopping, and yeah, that's.
Thanks, Atalay. Other arts experiences?
I have been in mixed media twice in middle school. In 5th grade, I took 2 theater classes. I think I took Intro to Acting or something like that, and Intro to Shakespeare. I took choir twice in middle school, and in 8th grade, we got a really cool opportunity. Miss Ellingson, there was a production at the Paramount Theater, and they wanted a youth choir to sing in it. And so they reached out to Miss Ellingson, and Miss Ellingson asked chamber choir if anyone would want to sing. And chamber choir is the choir that you audition for in upper school. And so a few people from chamber choir did that, and then she still had a few spots left. So she asked the choir I was in, and I did it with a few other people from my choir, and it was really cool. It was around Christmas, so we sang carols in the lobby, and then we were singing during the actual musical, and we got to see the musical also, and it was really fun.
Did you ever think you were going to sing at the Paramount Theater? That is so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And after each show was done, we would wait outside, me and my friends, for my friends had to pick us up, and it was by the back door. So the actors were also there, and we got to say hi, and it was really cool because they're really talented.
That's great. So there are audition ensembles like the chamber choir and the chamber music ensemble, and then there's also first-time music experiences. So has anyone out there learned how to play an instrument or maybe sung in a choir for the first time at EPS? Go ahead, Zoe.
I haven't. I'm hoping to learn the violin and be in the EPS classical band, but that's next 2 trimesters.
Okay, so coming up here, pretty exciting. Great.
For our concert last year, Miss Ellingson asked if anyone would like to do solo, sing by themselves, for parts of a song. So. And she had everyone who wanted to, they got to audition, and I was able to do that, and it was really a really fun experience because I never sang before that, so it was nice.
That's great. So from first time choral music experiences to soloing to going to the Paramount to perform. Just really good to hear that arc of your experience, Dia. I love being able to hear how you represented that. So I want to ask some questions about you know, we've talked about community at various moments, especially when we're talking about the classroom environment. And we have a question about how EPS supports diverse identities within the student body. So this person wants to know, what do you do to help students understand what it means to be a positive contributor to a community filled with diverse members? So, you know, I would love to hear certainly from the faculty and the students both about, you know, what does it mean to be a member of a diverse community like EPS? How are you encouraged to show up in that space? And how do you feel like your identities are, you know, acknowledged as an EPS community member?
I could actually jump in here because we just did a great activity related to this just yesterday. So we had our interim equity, inclusive and compassionate leadership director. Titles, I'm not great with those, but he led a middle school assembly where we talked about identity a little bit, and we talked about different groups, and about we had a couple of teachers present and educate us about kind of Latinx versus Hispanic, and there was kind of a cool educational piece with that. And then in advisory, we spent time talking about identity and kind of thinking about what makes up our own identities. And then what I thought was really cool is there was this analogy of the identity like an iceberg. And so only certain aspects of who you are immediately visible to people, and how there's so much more beneath the surface. And just having the students take time to think about that for themselves and to talk about it. And it was really amazing that on every level in the middle school, kids really engaged with it. You know, even the 8th graders who were kind of over it in some ways, right? That they really went there. And I think, you know, that's something that we weave in a lot of different places. But I was really happy to see how the kids, they really dive into that work, you know, when you give it to them, and they're really invested in it, really passionate about it.
In our 8th grade history class, we were learning about religions, and like there were people in our class from those religions, so they were able to share like holidays, what they do, and for a culture fair, I got to bring henna, and I did henna on some of my friends, and like my teacher, like me and my friend. So this is what I really liked about that class. She let us do pretty much whatever we wanted for the culture fairs. Like there were guidelines of like what you should like get across. But usually it was individual. Sometimes it was a partner project. But me and my friend had an idea. Like she was presenting about, I think, clothing or something and fashion, and I was presenting about henna and like when you put henna and what it means. And so we asked our teacher if we could do it together, so she could present, I could present, and then or like I could present and then she could present while I was doing henna on people. And it was really fun to be able to do that.
That's awesome. So a collaborative moment, as well as one where you were able to bring a part of your identity to an activity very directly.
Ms. Miller, I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the work that the faculty and staff do under the leadership of Ms. McKinney and Dr. Castro, who Ms. Dodd just referenced. We have an equity, inclusion, and compassionate leadership co-learning group for faculty and staff. And I think that why our faculty is able to connect with students on these topics and able to explore diversity and being in a community with them is because we practice it together. We've had the opportunity to meet multiple times to deconstruct identity for ourselves, right? So very much a model like I do, we do, you do. Right. So the more we're familiar with the concept of identity, the better equipped we are to work with students on it. And I think that's a powerful part of the place.
I'd like to jump in too. Just from an English perspective, it like within a classroom, and this is true from 5th grade all the way up through 8th grade, telling our own stories and being able to share parts of us and normalize it is something that I'm extremely passionate about. I believe that everybody has their own story, and that if the students, if we don't all learn how to tell our own stories, then then people don't learn about us, right? So we do a lot of sharing of our own ideas, and we do it in a variety of ways in class pretty much every single day. Having kids talk about their own experiences. In 6th grade, we do like a food party where people bring their family recipes, and they get to share they get to share, family traditions and bring in their own culture to the classroom, and people can see how wonderful that is. We write personal narratives pretty much, well, in every single grade, and they just progress, from the time they're in 5th grade all the way till 8th grade. Book choices, we try to pick materials that are inclusive of many different cultures, many different eras, many different places around the world, and really just introduce students to all of this variety, right? Because if they don't see all of that variety, and we normalize it, we make it okay, we talk about all of the differences, and really, try to bring it to life for them.
Anyone else want to share about our diverse community and anything around identity before we move on?
I noticed that everyone is like really supportive of everyone else. We have like class discussions. We had this one period in history in 6th grade where everyone just talked about things that they've been through in the past. And it wasn't even related to history, but our teacher, Mr. Winkleman, everyone could share whatever they wanted and everyone else just listened, and it was really nice.
Sometimes it takes going off of maybe the curricular plan to have those sharing moments that are really powerful. And actually, I want to bridge that to another question that we got early in the evening, which is how we incorporate mindfulness in the curriculum. What does that look like? And I actually want to dovetail that with a question that we have around homework expectations for 5th graders, because I feel like to meet challenges, especially academic challenges, we really know that we have to ensure that student well-being is at the center. And so I think mindfulness practices can be part of that. And I'm wondering if faculty have any examples of anything that you've layered into your courses in particular, or if students have any examples of things that they participated in class that they felt like helped them to center, to be aware of themselves, to be aware of the environment around them, different things like that.
We have a yoga class. I took it in, I don't remember if it was 7th or 8th grade. I think it was 7th grade. And it was really relaxing. At the end of every period, she let us do Shavasana, which is basically lying on the floor. And there were these bean bag things. They were this big and they smelled like lavender, and you put them over your eyes and sleep on the floor, and it was really nice. And some other times the counselors and Miss Shalana, who is the yoga teacher, come into class meeting or advisory, and the counselors say, hey, we're here if you need to talk to us, and sometimes we meditate together.
I'm thinking of an example in the 6th grade. Our 6th grade science teacher, remember last year, maybe it was the year before, started a mindful moment or mindful minute at the beginning of each of her classes, and then also ended her classes with a mindful minute, where she had, it was such a welcoming thing. She had some quiet music playing, but it was really just a chance for kids to just be quiet and just be present for a moment at the beginning of class and then at the end of class as a way to kind of signal, okay, I'm in a different space. I'm letting go of whatever was there before me, and I'm practicing, I'm thinking about what's going to be here now for the next 85 minutes or whatever, however long we're together. And she started that, and students would ask in other classes. They'd come into my class, they'd be kind of all over the place and be like, Ms. Mills, can we have a mindful minute, because we just need to calm our bodies down, and we just need to be here and present in the classroom. So the one class sort of spread through the whole entire year into many of the different classes. But it was all based on, students finding a lot of value in being present. And that's what being mindful does so well, right? Helping students like kind of forget about what was going on before and really try to help them focus in the moment.
Ms. Miller, can you repeat your question about homework? I'm thinking about it as a parent of a current 6th grader, and also thinking back to my son's experience last year. What was your question there?
Yeah, so homework expectations. This was asked for 5th graders, but I think you can broaden this to middle school generally and talk about it more generally. Time commitment and workload, and again, this idea of having something that you're committing your time to, right? You can commit your time to a variety of things within a class period and after school and what have you. So thinking about what it looks like for our students to be doing work on their own, and what's the time commitment and sort of load that's involved in that.
I think I'll speak about it more generally, and then maybe throw it to the students to talk about what it actually feels like from a parent's perspective. Watching the 5th grade experience, the homework seemed incredibly measured. I don't feel like we were getting to points of overwhelm, right? It seemed to be like the right kind of homework coming out of a class period or getting ready for the next one. And I think that what I'm recognizing watching a 6th grader now is that there's a plan, right? The fifth grade is challenging, but at the right developmental level. And then I'm seeing that progress in the beginning of the 6th grade, right? Where the assignments are asking for a little bit more, again, still very measured, but really tuned to exactly where my 6th grader is. Students, how do you think about homework and how it lands with you at your grade level or in particular classes?
I think it's really important to use your study halls. They're there for a reason, and if you use your study halls, then it gets a lot easier. And teachers are really open to hearing about if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you need help, or if you need an extension. They're really nice about it. And in 9th grade, the first trimester, everyone is required to have 2 study halls, and I tried to get out of it. I was like, Mr. Stegman, I don't need 2 study halls. I've been fine in the past. And he said, no, we want you to have 2 study halls so you can get used to it. And it's really helpful. So, yeah.
That's great. So there's that built-in tool for managing your time, managing your assignments, that is study hall in middle school, and then will transform into free periods as students are demonstrating in upper school that they're ready for that. And so that is a full class period, just like every other class that a student has on their schedule. That's a full class period that is dedicated to study hall. So what else about homework, y'all? Go ahead.
Adding to what she said, so yeah, you can also use your study halls, but also if you just use your time wisely, including using your study halls, then it's not that hard to actually do your homework on time. I don't know about upper school, but like right now we average about 3 to 5 assignments a day, and about 2 of those are classwork. So if you just the other like 3 assignments take about 20 to 30 minutes each, so it's not that hard to just to use that study hall, because 20 times 3 is 60, and our study halls are 1 hour each. So you can get done with most of those assignments, especially if you're in middle school, and if you're in upper school, you can use both of those study halls to get more work done.
Yeah, I'd like to add some advice. for homework and spending your time wisely, try not to leave your homework to like the last day, because you know, you might have like something unexpected happen there. So a big thing is like try to, on weekends especially, try to do most of the homework that you can in the week, so that if anything happen, and also don't but if you have study halls, use that study hall time wisely.
Adelaide, I want to ask you a specific question, because we got another question in here, which is the school's view on social media and the use of technology for recreational purposes when students are at school. Do you think that avoiding some recreational technology during study halls is a good path for success?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
I think avoiding like you know, recreational stuff could be pretty useful, especially if there's like a lot of homework in the week and you need to get it done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, just only do it if there's like zero homework that you can do, like zero, which is probably going to be pretty rare.
You're usually going to have something you can do, right? Cool. So it sounds like homework manageable, great to utilize your study halls to take care of it, and great to stay focused during that time. So we are at our hour and a half for this program. I don't know if you all out there feel the same way. I could listen to these students and our faculty talk all night about the things that they are excited about and eager about. I love, especially those of you who shared stories of growth and things that you challenge yourselves with, and the ways that the ways that you were supported in those challenges. I do want to say that we have some other opportunities coming up for you to hear specifically about some of the different ways that we're supporting students. Our student well-being panel, Ms. Nichol, if you can remind us what day that's going to be on coming up, that would be awesome. That's going to be a great opportunity to get a little bit more in depth in terms of the specifics as far as the overall picture of well-being and some of the ways that we're supporting students uniquely. We can get into much greater depth there as far as learning support and programs like our guided study hall and what that looks like. So we've got a lot more to tackle there. We also had some great questions that we didn't have a chance to get to in terms of admissions process. So just really quickly, I would love to address a couple of things. Number one, that we have the admissions process totally online this year. So what you're enjoying right now is a taste of what you can enjoy through the rest of the process. If you haven't already attended one of our online tours, that's a great opportunity to get to learn more. If you have the opportunity to visit, you'll be able to participate. Oh yeah, there you go, Ms. Nichol. Some of the different the different events that we'll be doing as far as small groups and mock classes. And yep, you can see our upcoming community panels there. Thank you so much, Ms. Nichol. So these are informational events, and then there are also some required events for the process. So when you get into Urbana, you'll see the difference between those things in terms of what's required and what's optional. But we hope that that will kind of set the tone for what to expect there. And then certainly we also got a question about taking the ISEE, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there have questions about SSAT. And students, you went through this process. You probably didn't take the test at home. You probably took a paper test when you did that. But we have many students that are taking the SSAT or ISE at home right now. And that's something that is just one factor of many. You've heard from these great students tonight who are all complex individuals who have great experiences. They are a diverse group. They have different strengths and weaknesses. I won't tell you what their test scores were because there's a whole range in here, and it's not important to what their EPS experience is on a day-to-day basis now. It gave us one inkling of what to expect in terms of what they would bring to the school, but it's just one factor in many of their experience. So I just wanted to make sure to address that one because we know that the standardized testing can be nerve-wracking, but we also know that you have a lot of opportunities to show us who you are throughout the entire application process, from participating in a mock class to being part of a small group activity, coming to one of our game nights, which is totally optional, but is going to be super fun, and we'll have great student ambassadors like the ones you heard from tonight who will be part of those events. So we're just really grateful for the opportunity to have been able to start to have you get to know who we are as a middle school at Eastside Prep. I want to give a huge round of applause to our students. So feel free to unmute everyone if you're muted right now. Because y'all are rock stars, and to our rock star faculty, I mean, you can see the connection that they have to the students. So I want to give snaps for the faculty, and just the thing that I wish all of you event participants could experience right now is the back channel chat that we have going on while the event's happening, because there's just so much support happening in that chat. When somebody phrases something that like resonates with someone else, we're like, yeah, Rocket, that's awesome, you did great. And that is the EPS community in a nutshell. So so from the front stage to the backstage, from the backstage to the front stage, thank you for being part of this event today. And we will really hope to see you again for future events. Any other housekeeping items, Ms. Nichol, before we take off?
I don't think so. Just thank you for being here.
Yeah, any last words of wisdom that anyone wants to add? All right, then I'll send us out with a go Eagles. Thanks everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.